Can anybody see me? Yes, just about. Good evening, everyone. I hope we're all well. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It's been a few days. I hope you're all doing lovely. That was almost a sentence. Well done. So at least of you already watching. So hello, 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 and welcome. Tonight's going to hopefully be a little more informal. As you can probably hear, I'm playing bass as I sort this out. Cheers, everybody. Back on the old beer. Tonight's stream, we are going to finish off the song Weather by Banana Ranch. And hopefully we'll have that done and dusted fairly soon. We'll just have a little bit of a chill out. Because I was restream bot sending... Oh, I didn't actually hit the update button because I am an idiot. But yes, we're going to quickly have another playthrough Searchlight that we were talking about last stream. I've done a few mixed tweaks to it where I've been away from it for a while and listened to it and went, ooh, that could change, this could change, that could change. And then we are going to finish off the song Weather, which is nice. So roll the intro. Yes, I'm a rather tired Adam this week. I have been doing a lot of stuff in terms of acquiring new gear for the studio, setting up the studio. We now have our proper live stream setup ready. And I know this isn't the best quality, but hopefully you can see we now have 4 screens up and running on the live stream machine in the studio. So that's going to be very, very clever. And the new studio PC, the Ryzen PC, is running wonderfully well. That I threw the most difficult mix I have at it, that was a 96 kilohertz mix, nearly 100 channels, down at 64 samples of latency, so something like 2 millisecond round trip, 30%, 40% processor usage, didn't care. And that's exactly what I need that machine for, is no matter what I throw at that now, it's not going to panic. So, we now have the 2 machines set up in the studio, and I also have been going round the north of England picking up equipment that people are selling because of the situation. So I've ended up buying myself an 8x10 PV cab, which I am very much looking forward to playing. Oh, same time as the premiere of Zildjian. My live streams are always at the same time as something typical. And so, yeah, I've got an 8x10 from PV that's also got a tweeter in, which I'm going to be capturing. And I also got a Fender Twin. I'm not sure entirely what year it's from. I think it's late 80s, early 90s. It's not a vintage Twin, which is fine by me because vintage is nice, but when you run a studio, vintage blows up within about 3 hours. I have learned this. Yeah, I generally tend to find that in the studio, you actually run amps a lot louder than you would live because you don't have to worry about bleed, you don't have to worry about stage volume. So you end up actually running them really hot. And then, yeah, if you've got a nice vintage amp that's not really had a proper outing in 30 years or whatever it is, they're more likely to go pop than the nice new stuff. Anyway, I digress. That Fender Twin has lovely Fender speakers in it, and I'm going to capture it. Then I'm going to replace them. I think I'm going to replace them with Celestian Gold. Ooh, yes, Celestian Gold. That's going to be rather nice. Because, I mean, Celestian speakers in a Twin, if it's good enough for Joe Bonamassa, it's good enough for me. So, yeah. Oh, I do have a greenback and a creamback medium. Although, no, that might blow the greenback up. That would definitely blow the greenback up because it's a 100-watt Twin. The power transformer in it's about the size of my head. Huge. And people were saying in the Discord in chat, oh, like, careful, you'll break your back taking that down the stairs. Guys, I'm a bass player. I deal with 8x10s. A Fender Twin's like one arm's worth of weight. I mean, I took it down the stairs and my back did kind of go, hey, maybe don't do that again. But it was not heavy enough to cause damage. So, yes. I have been playing with a couple of new things that I got recently. And the thing that's most relevant to this mix, this is Searchlight that we were playing with recently. The thing that I got that's most relevant is there was a sale on Stephen Slate Drums and Triggers expansion packs. So I got the David Bendeth expansion pack. David Bendeth, probably most well known for Misery Business by Paramore. Amongst many, many, many other things, he's well known. But yeah, I really liked his drum sounds. I'm slightly disappointed with the expansion pack, but there are a couple of things in there. There's only 2 snares in there, but one of them sounds like this. So yeah, so those are the Slate snares, and this is the Bendeth one. It sounds huge. And it's all about context, but in context, that dang and the big metallic thing, which also added in that, which I can identify that as a Yamaha SPX 90, and that, which is, that's that snare in a 3D room. Put all that together, and suddenly I was rethinking some of my mix decisions here. So I ended up also using a trick that I found that Warren Hewitt did on his channel this week, which was, why not have a compressor on your overheads and some of your rooms that just ducks out some of the snare, so the snare's got more room to breathe. So now I'll go to a bit of the song. There we go. Can you see those meters going on these two, where if I take these off, that hi-hat, and especially if I go to a crashy section, that crash is just straight through the entire track, whereas if I put these compressors on the overhead and room even, that snare crack now magically makes the cymbals duck down, which in context of the entire kit turns into this. And now that snare's thundering through and I've got a bit more room, I ended up playing around with the guitar group. I added True Iron, and there was a little bit of a resonance over all of the guitars. So the guitars now sound like this. Although I did go into the EQ then and back off some of the boosts that we'd done and added a Neve top-end boost instead of an SSL-end boost. I've always liked the Neve top-end boost on guitars. It just seems to work better for me than the SSL one for some reason, for whatever that reason is. And then, of course, I ended up going to the vocals because then the vocals were getting slightly lost. Added True Iron there. What else did I do? Not a lot. I ended up bringing up some of the backing vocals and then taking a mid-dip out of the group that we'd made. So, small tweaks, but stuff where if I just play it from the beginning, and we'll just play through this song now, and you'll just hear some significant changes that have all added up to more clarity. Oh, and there's also, I put micro shift on the entire vocal group, but just subtly, just a little bit, so that it just made everything pop in the 3D space just a bit, which was inspired by Biffy Clyro again. If you listen to something like God and Satan from the Only Revolutions album, that's kind of, it's a single vocal, but it's still got a kind of a stereo-y thing on it. I just kind of like that, so I thought I'd keep it, but keep it really subtle. So here's what we get all together.
You pull me up with the slightest word, you knock me down with ease. I'm teetering, I'm on the edge, I'm falling to my knees. All alone in the darkest desert, the mountains block my view. Waiting patiently for your searchlight, what else can I do? It's a shame that you leave me hanging on for dear life, darling. A shame that I can't be found within your searchlight beam. It's a shame that you leave me hanging on for dear life, darling. A shame that I can't be found within your searchlight beam. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Without a shell, there is no me. Without a shell, there is no me.
And so on. The whole sequence repeats again. But yeah, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Oh, also on the bass, I couldn't feel that low end, so I just added Air EQ's earth and just added a bit of earth after the compressor that just when the octave kicks in suddenly makes your chest rumble and just makes it go, oh. But also affects the rest of the bass, so it kind of holds the low end down a bit better. Yes, do give the thumbs up. Do I ever record percussion? Well, percussion's a very, very wide field, but yes. Yes, I do record percussion. And it's always the same. Recording percussion is always serve the track. Because people ask me, how do you mic up this instrument? How do you mic up that instrument? How do you mic up this instrument? I don't know. The questions you should be asking are, what genre are you in? What kind of sound are you hoping to achieve? Is this a lead instrument or a background instrument? How much of the overall instrument am I trying to capture? Am I trying to get a real hyper-focused sound? Am I trying to get a more overall vibe? Those are the ways to approach an instrument, not what instrument is this. If you take that approach to every instrument that you put a microphone near, you'll probably not go far wrong. That way, you are not even stuck to one genre. So, yes, moving on to the song Weather. Let's put True Iron on this master bus here and just take the output down a bit and then see what we have. Because this song, I think we got part way through. Yeah, drums and percussion, that's still a very, very wide thing there. Still not giving me a lot to go on.
Oh, this time please say that you wish me luck. I'll need it surely, I will need it a lot. On days like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle. And when I feel I'm failing, you will prop me up.
Brazilian and world percussion. Whoa, well, in that case, that's still probably more vague than you think it is, because world percussion, it's a big world, but still, everything that I said in terms of approach, use that every time. Yeah, can't go far wrong. Oh, the video on the Cab M Plus. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I had to kind of throw that video together rather quickly, which is why it's just a shot of my face. I was hoping to get more nice shots of the pedal in there, but yeah. Oh, a big stretch. Oh. Yeah, I'm a little bit tired today because I've been in the studio for days and days at a time. I've started on a big project which I'm not allowed to tell you all about yet, which is slightly annoying. It's more than slightly annoying, let's be honest. But it does mean... So I'm just going to bring up the Arturia. No, not the software center, the... audio, that one, just because this microphone's really loud in my ears. And oh, no wonder it's at plus 10 dB. There we go, that's better. I don't need to hear it that loud. Gee whiz. Yeah, the Cab M video, I was part of the the beta team for that. So yeah, we were developing it as it went. So when I did the video, it was kind of mostly going off what I already knew. And yeah, the big project is it's a product thing rather than an artist thing. That much I feel comfortable saying. And yeah, I mean, it's to do with guitar cabinets. That much I can say because that's not a big secret. That's what I'm known for at this point. But that's as much as I can say because it's a big job. But hopefully, only a few weeks from now, it'll all be done, it'll all be ready, it'll all come out, and I'll be able to say, yes, that was me. But quite often when you work with companies, they want to do these big releases and marketing pushes, and for some reason they don't want you to build hype about them ahead of time, which makes no sense to me, but big companies want to do big launches, and they want it to be their launch, done their way, and stuff like that. Fine. So yes, hopefully we're still going away to see Mickey's family this weekend as well, if the lockdown permits. That may not happen, but if it does, that actually means I'll be editing a lot over the weekend, which is good because I'll get to catch up on editing, because boy am I behind. I've now filmed more videos. Lugging huge cabs around the country. Well, the PV and the PV cab and the Fender Twin are just opportunities that have come up this week, and I do like to take opportunities where I can. So even if I don't get around to capturing them for a while, I have them now. So yes, but I've been trying my best to do little bits of vlog footage where I can, but even editing that together, I've been getting into bed at night and I've been trying to edit these vlogs on my phone, and I just do it for about 3 minutes and then just my head hits the pillow. And for whatever reason today, all my allergies have gone absolutely crazy. So if I start sniffling and snuffling, don't worry, I'm not ill. I'm just feeling the after effects of a heavy night of dust and allergens and stuff, because I've been behind I've been reinstalling the studio computer, so I've been down behind the consoles where all the dust settles, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so, yeah, quite right, the whole financial stability thing, it's it's all going well, it's just tiring. But yeah, now that I vaguely remember this song's layout, we got to a skeleton structure. That's right. So let's look at adding in more vocals, then adding in more guitars, and see where we get to. So are these the... So hard to handle. Declare war with the studio dust bunnies. Well, I tried to keep out of their way. Bit of a deal, like you stay out of my way, I'll stay out of yours. But they defiled the treaty and declared open Dust Bunny war. All right, let's open up the vocal group. Make sure these are all the same color. Right click, track color, set to one random color. Ooh, that's a horrible kind of pea green thing. That'll do. So, I'm going to leave auto tune where it is actually and just copy virtual mix rack over to these for that nice bit of compression there. And I'm going to scoop more low end out of these backing vocals and actually not boost the top end. I'm just going to take more low mids out instead. That's a nicer background, because I, up until recently, have had a terrible habit with backing vocals of really pushing the high end on them. And I'm finding more and more recently that that's not the ideal way to go. And that basically the way that I've always seen it is that the main vocal has plenty of mids and is right in front of you, and the backing vocals have less mids to sit behind. But over time in my mixing, that's become more of like a loudness curve on the backing vocals, not so much on the low end. The low end could be quite aggressively scooped, but I think I've just been going too far with it. And so the whole Steve Harley Cockney Rebel thing, that's classic Neve channels on everything. In fact, let's get the VCC channel on Neve and do that thing, and maybe a tiny bit of a high frequency bump just to compensate for the fact that the Brit end's a little dark. And so I've got micro shift going on these two backing vocals that I've just folded. So that's them both down the middle, but with the stereo thing. That's very early 90s.
So hard to handle.
Yeah, lower background vocals do work well. As soon as you've got higher harmonies, they do start to steal the spotlight a little bit. Lower harmonies is actually surprisingly Queen-esque, apart from when Roger Taylor does the high thing. Very often, Freddie Mercury would be doing the high note, and a lot of the harmonies would be one or two steps below. It does mean that Brian May had to be very clever with his harmonies, because when you stack them, and let's say Freddie Mercury's singing the root note, Roger Taylor might be then singing the fifth, and then Brian May will be singing the third. But because Brian May's got no lower octave to reference off, he's actually the bottom of the chord and making it what's called a first inversion, which means that he's got to really be switched on and make sure that he's not messing about. But yeah, let's try this under the main vocal now.
Pressure feels so hard to handle. Pressure feels like this. The pressure feels so hard to handle.
I can hear a little bit of vocal distortion going on somewhere.
Like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle.
What is this?
Like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle.
There we go, just calibrate the tape so we're not pushing it so much. I like a bit of distortion overall, because actually in the mix you won't notice that. You'll just hear a thickness.
Like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle.
So that backing vocal does need a little bit of top.
Like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle.
And let's take the transformer out of this compressor just to clean it up a bit.
Like this, the pressure feels so hard to
There we go. Just that slight extra clarity here, without pushing too far. That's going to be the same right the way throughout the song. And so, well, looks like we've got two sets of group harmonies here. Pear character exaggeratedly stretching his arm forward to offer a cup of coffee. Well, thank you very much. It's the end of my working day, so right now I'm drinking Old Speckled Hen. But yes, first thing tomorrow morning I will need the coffee, so thank you very much. Is that 4 Swiss francs, I think? Awesome. CHF. Okay. Not sure those notes know what they want to be. All right. Well, let's treat these as a group. And now that they're a folder, let's call it when. Let's pan the middle one slightly off, because then it's not fighting directly with the main vocal at any point. Nice. They probably don't need overly compressing, but they need a little something something. Let's use the London preamp to just give it a bit push. That should give us a little character. Don't need any more low end. There's definitely some mud going on in the low mid. There. Okay, so the revival shimmer is kind of like a parallel slight tube saturation on the top end, so it's very, very subtle, and it just does something nice. And that FG401 compressor here, let's say 3-1, so we're not killing it. And we'll leave it on circuit 1 because that's VCA. And just a little more, just so that it's really level. And then push the makeup gain back to where it was. Let's see where this sits in our vocal mix now. And that's in the middle of nowhere. That's not cutting through at all. So let's just loop this little bit. Right, and that needs loads of reverb because that's really psychedelic, I think. Right, well, if we're going psychedelic, let's go psychedelic. That lustrous plates, that needs less low end in the bottom. There we go. Let's really go crazy with this. Phase Mistress. Let's see what we can get here. There we go, a proper like univibe type thing. See. Yeah. More. I need something a bit more. Well, let's combine that with Pan Man, and just make sure that's not quite so wide, but just let's take some low end out. Forgot to do that. There we go. That's completely different to the original, and hopefully we'll make it stand out a little. That's right. That's the reason that I stopped doing this in the first place. The drums are calling. The drums, whether. Please tell me I downloaded them, because I'm pretty sure that. Come on, brain. Let's get into my email account. Because Paul sent me the... come on. Oh, expired yesterday. Oh, you're kidding. What was it called? Weather drums. Did I download it? I don't think I did, because I'm a complete idiot. I'll have to get him to send them. Weather. Could have. Oh, I've emptied my downloads folder. That's what it is. I'm a complete wally. Let's carry on with getting these vocals to fit. It looks like I'm going to have to come back to the drums, because the issue last time was at the drums. There was a snare on the kick drum track. So, what I'm going to do for today, because I'm a complete and utter idiot, is I'm just going to bring in a kick on this trigger for now. Oh, gee whiz. That's far too aggressive. That'll do. detail.
On days like this, the pressure feels so hard.
Just gonna turn off trigger for a sec. And just... This is just a temporary measure. I'll just get Paul to send me the drums again, but that's very silly of me. There we go. That should be a decent enough trigger source.
On days like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle.
Close enough for now.
On days like this, the pressure feels so hard.
Right, these guitars are way too loud. So let's just... Also, these boosts are a bit egregious for this track. Often happens when I've been watching one too many Chris Lord LG videos.
To handle. When I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. Then you serenade me with your love. Whether I deserve it or not, I feel I'm failing. You prop me up. Then you serenade me with your. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up.
Right, so I want that to be pre-effects, that trigger send.
And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. Then
That's better.
when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. Then you serenade me with your love. Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not.
Right, there we go. That's
Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not.
right. So I'm just going to quickly do a balance, and how I do a balance, just take every separate group down to 0 apart from the drums. There we go. This song doesn't need that cannon of a center ambient mic. I'm going to see if I can replace that with something a little more normal. Not the Bendeth kick. This is not the song for a David Bendeth kick. Soft beater. That's probably it. And then once I've got a reasonable drum balance, start to fade the other things up. Whoa, okay, looks like I was overdoing that a bit. Let's just take a load of 800 hertz out. And some 220 away. Bit more. Okay, that main vocal was just dipping in and out all the time, so I've just really hit it with that 1176 so that it just stays a lot more even. Alright, so... Ooh! We have our own little actual choir going on. These will be Delay City. Do I have the volume down more than usual? It's quite possible that the mix is down here, actually. Ah, the mix going out to you guys was down by a few dB, probably from the live PC building stream. Hopefully this is a bit better. So, let's get these choir voices. Let's make these a real effect. Let's really go for it with these. So a little bit of air. I say a little bit, that's a good 6 dB. Let's bring in an EVQ to just sculpt that low a bit. And I'm going to give this an unusual treatment, which is I usually put Verb Suite Classics on Ascend. This time I'm going to go all out. Where's my... let's use a Bricasti Hall. Start with a concert hall and see how we go on. And just make sure the dry wet. Start at 50. Sounds nice. It's going to need a little EQ work afterwards because it's now got horrible kind of honk. And just kill low end. These overhead and ambient sections are a bit overbearing here. That's the one. Hopefully I can just turn down one of these and just get that effect without it just taking over every frequency. Oh, hi Paul, thank you very much. Yes, that's totally my fault. I've been so busy, I always thought, oh, well, I'll download them before next week. And the download expired about 5 hours ago. Typical WeTransfer, they're like, hey, you can have this for free. Maybe. simulate a room ambience per instrument. Not usually per instrument. I usually have set, like, if I have an effects group that's just kind of behind my head. I'll just make some blank tracks just to push it over so you can see it. There we go. So this is what I usually have. And depends on the... seems I haven't yet sent the guitars over. I usually send things like guitars over to the small room, which is a broadcasting room. But it depends. It depends on the mix. It depends on the song. Quite often on slower songs, I do that because I feel like it brings a certain cohesiveness together.
You're there for me, whether I deserve it or not. I've been trying to get up of myself. Changing the back of my thoughts. On days like this, you're all that I have got, and I'm grateful. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up, and then you serenaded me with your love. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up, and then you serenaded me with your love. Whether I deserve it.
Oh, thank you very much. Now comes the I've got to fit in another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, another 10 guitars. This is going to be fun. Although it shouldn't be too bad, I don't think. So we've got these two. That's in the core. That's in the verse. Sorry. So that's just a feature. So that's something that I can add in quite happily. They sound like something that would happily go through a twin. Where are you? There's got to be a twin in here somewhere. Black verb. And I'll use one of my cabs again. Yeah, 4x12's fine. It's an exceptionally clean amp, that's for sure. Do I know how to read a sonar EQ? I mean, an EQ's an EQ. So, sure.
I will need it a lot. I will need it a lot. On days like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle. I will need it a lot. On days like this, the pressure feels so hard.
Let's just bring the overall output up by a few dB.
I will need it a lot. On days like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle.
And give this some plate reverb as well.
I will. On days like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle.
Halfway through the Reaper series. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of flying through some of this stuff here, but I'm glad you got the course, and I hope it's helping you out. Re-EQ and Nova. Well, Re-EQ doesn't do dynamic EQ. It does like touch sensitive, but Nova's cool. Personally, I don't really do dynamic EQ, but that's just my style. Good evening, everybody. Right, what are these? Let's have a look. Well, let's have a listen. More like. Right, so these have got to ring out over the top of. So I'm thinking crunchy but not too crunchy. Let's go with the champ, so otherwise known as the chimp. Let's just drop a cabinet on top, but I'll change it out for copperback. Let's go with the copperback U87. See how that does. Now I can hear some definite kind of aliasing going on, especially affecting the low end. So let's just cut out all the low end. There's no nasty resonances in there, which is nice. Let's just see what it's like volume-wise. On top of that. Right, so this is another one where I'm going to add Echo Boy, my favourite delay, to really kind of space this out a bit. Start with an Echoplex. And without. Now hopefully this is giving it a spacey quality that I was looking for. Ooh, nice. Let's see how that fits in the mix.
Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not.
Right. So I've been leaving the difficult bit to last because I've got many guitars to get in here. This is the build-up. So let's get these palm mute guitars in a group. Now, with the nature of this song, I probably don't want this to be an absolutely hammered type of mix. Ooh. Yeah. YouTube's busy, but that's fine because right now we're doing something else. I do like using a dual rectifier. I'm going to use this on the red channel, but not on modern mode. And get that cabinet copied over and just get a sound first. Whoa. Bright, less. That's what it sounds like when you put a single coil guitar, probably Ricky's Telly, through a dual rectifier. That's how it sounds. So let's just see how this sounds in context. Oh. I'll just take that down by a couple of dB. As nice as it is, I've got 2 more guitars to fit in this space yet. So it was Chug, which I'm hiding in its own its own folder. There we go. So I can actually buy, if I right click on the master, pro tip, there's a button somewhere, clickable icon for folder tracks to show and hide children. And that way I can show and hide other tracks inside folders like that. And that means that I can concertina things together and have loads of folders going on and still not have the most super complicated display ever. I'm going to call this bridge top. No, I mean, that's a nice idea using an acoustic IR on this. But that, to me, needs a little bit of what I call twinkle. And the way I get twinkle is I'm going to copy this Fender Champ over from... There we go. And just back the gain off a little from that. And just nick that echo bar as well, but just less of it by backing the dry wet off. There we go. Now that might need a bit of EQ work to fit that in nicely, but let's try it. Yeah, that needs some EQ work just to get that to fit in. So first thing, low end, just be gone. We don't need you. Secondly, there was some lumpy low mid. And let's add a bit more of that top. And overall just boost the level a bit. Yeah. And last but not least, what is this? So that's the Bridge Strike. Now this sounds like it's supposed to be an AC30 because it's got that definite brown kind of Beatlesy thing going on. So these get their own hard pan. These get... is there an AC30 in here? I'm sure there is. Vocal 30, yep. And I'm going to copy the cab loader, but I'm going to change this out for a 2x12 with... what have I got? Yeah, creambacks. Creambacks are probably the closest thing. Oh. Yeah. And that's going to need some EQing right there. I'm just going to copy that one and see what I've got. Yeah. And context. Right, and now let's hear it in the mix and see how this whole bunch that we've just worked on fits.
The pressure feels so hard to handle. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. And then you serenading me with your love. Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not. I've been trying to get a grip of myself. Oh, times are changing and I'm losing track of my thoughts. On days like this, you're all that I have got, and I'm grateful. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. And then you serenading me with your love. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. And then you serenading me with your love. Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not. Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not.
Okay, good question in the chat. How do you deal with hearing fatigue when mixing with headphones? The answer is a little complicated, but the first part is I don't get hearing fatigue on headphones. Not because I'm special or anything like that, but because I've engineered this setup so that I don't get hearing fatigue. Firstly, I'm using Sennheiser HD 650s, which are open back, which means that they breathe, which means I don't get horribly sweaty, cramped ears. They have velour ear pads instead of leather, so they don't get sweaty, so it doesn't get uncomfortable. From there, the next thing is I don't have my headphones very loud. If I do that, just gently, I can hear that very clearly. Which means that even though I'm on headphones, I still have to be in quite a quiet room to mix like this. It's hard to measure because it's so close to my ears, but I'm probably a maximum of around 80 to 85 dB mixing level. And my right hand where my mouse is right near the volume control, so if it does start to get loud, I just turn it down a little, and that doesn't affect the stream output. Secondly, well, the last thing is I also use SonarWorks, which helps to correct for things like a mid dip there and some harsh presence peaks in the headphones, so I don't get presence peaks battering my ears, which means that I have a nice smooth response and at a reasonable volume level and without any kind of headphone pressure or sweat or anything like that. I don't get headphone fatigue. So like I say, this entire setup is engineered around that. It doesn't do nearly as much correction on these as you would think. I mean, that low end, I've asked for it to do that. You think that's a lot of correction? You should see some of them other models. Blimey. That's what, like 3 dB there on a bump? Yeah, well, if you have HD 800s, of course you're not going to get that. But how much did you pay for them? What? Open profile. I'm not just going to... Yeah, so that's the thing. You paid a lot for those HD 800s. If I had lots of money, I'd probably do the same. But for anyone with any kind of sane budget, 650s are where it's at. The correction isn't as much, again, as you would think. And compared to any other pair of headphones, it's... let's just get rid of the before so you can actually see what's going on. And I'll put it on linear phase mode. So there's the correction curve. So I've added loads of low end below 50 hertz because traditionally 650s don't do that. I can't pull up the other ones because it's being really stupid, but that's what Oleo S4s look like in terms of correction. You thought 650s were bad compared to, again, that for 650. So that, blah, compared to that, reasonable. And what's more important to me is the high end is relatively linear. Relatively. Yes, 800s will be a little smoother than that, but the amount you're paying for them, I would expect so. And any... why won't it let me open a profile? Measure... I know they're around here somewhere, because I just had to go through all this rubbish. Yeah, difference is, like, I will take these off and I will throw these in my bag and I will take them everywhere with me. If I had HD 800s, I would treat them like royalty, and I need workhorses. These go around the world with me. And so if they get a bit of a dent, like, I'll show you the... if you can see, the entire colouring has gone off the sides of these headphones over the years. That's mostly kind of bare metal and rust on the edges at this point. I batter these. But then I do this for a living. So, yeah. I can't afford to be precious because I'm a working man with working gear. You know, it's like when you see two workmen and one's got pristine tools and one of them's got plaster and brick dust all over his, you tend to hire the one who's got the plaster and brick dust because you know they actually do their job. You know, I don't make things dirty for a reason, but think about it the other way round. You can tell that I use these a lot. I've had this same pair for about 5 years, maybe 6, and I did buy a second pair of 650s, and then Chris ended up with them. So, yeah, well. Yeah, for what these are, I can hear the difference with the correction, but it's not huge. It's not massive. Plus, I actually have quite a big tilt on the correction there. Personal preference, I like quite a crisp high end in my headphones so that I don't overcompensate and add too much high end to everything. But yeah, note to self, linear phase is now on, which adds 45 milliseconds of delay. And that's fine when I'm mixing. It's a subtle difference, but it does mean that I can't track with it on. So just got to keep that in mind. Hello? Play?
It's like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. And then you say it's like this.
Okay, the keyboard suddenly decided not to do anything in Reaper. This isn't the first time this has happened to me either. You wouldn't enjoy to listen or mix in the 800s without Sonarworks. Well, I was using 650s to mix with for about 5 years, if not more, before Sonarworks really came onto my radar at all. So at that point, I was so used to how these sound that the correction is relatively subtle, but the feel of everything else stays the same for me. So it took a little adjustment period, but it wasn't like, passing your driving test and then going and driving a truck. It was like driving a small truck and then driving a slightly bigger truck. If you get what I mean. I'd already done 100,000 miles in a small truck before I got in the big truck. The kind of the difference, but with the experience, meant that there was an adjustment period for me. Let's see. I don't think that counts as a crash count because everything got saved, but for whatever reason there was a weird keyboard bug. But compared to something like Pro Tools, that didn't take very long to load up again. Haha. I think largely speaking, we're pretty much there with this mix now. I did say it wouldn't take too long because it was just fitting tracks in. But yeah, let's put FGX on here just to bring the level up a little. Just for delivery. Oh yeah, and Paul's sending me the corrected drums, which, depending on... Oh, there we go. Get my files. That's downloading now. Let's listen to this.
The pressure feels so hard to handle. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. And then you serenading me with your love. Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not. I've been trying to.
Yeah, okay, so any second now the drums will be with me. The power of the modern internet. I mean, this is just ridiculous that I can do this fast. I'm just going to pause the syncing on the Dropbox, because otherwise when I drop all these in a few seconds, it will try and upload them all at the same time as me doing this stream, which is not ideal. 13 seconds left. 9 minutes left. 17 hours left. 1.5 universes of eternity left. 3 seconds left. Oh, Windows. There we go. Where the drums. Where the drums. Where the drums. And good tip to know, definitely everybody, is that if you get sent virtual drums, don't, whatever you do, don't replace just one single track if you get sent a replacement track, because a lot of these programs, how many do I need? 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A lot of the programs that you will use, let's make sure Snap is on. They do this kind of round robin thing. so that if you hit the same drum at the same velocity 8 times, it will actually play 8 slightly different samples, and it's pseudo-random the way that it does that, which keeps the performance slightly lively, which means that if you render the track out 10 different times, you will get 10 subtly different results. And what can happen there is, let's say that if you replace just the overheads but not the ambient mics, there might be slightly different cymbals hit at the same time, different samples triggered by the same MIDI, which means that you're suddenly going to get really weird phasing issues where one and another sample were hit perfectly in time but slightly out of phase with each other. And I've found that's really kind of messed up potential. It caused a lot of issues. That's probably the best way to describe it. So, yeah, you do it this way. You replace every single one of these all at once. And then life is not difficult. So, with snap on. There we go. Let's move them all in. Snare 2. There we go. Now, I don't actually need to gate the toms. But what I do need to do is solo this kick drum, because that was just weird. And get rid of that trigger, because that was just an interim solution. Definitely don't need the 3K push on this song. And let's see how this sounds.
This time please say that you wish me luck.
Oops.
Oh, this time please.
That should be there.
Oh, this time please say that you wish me luck. I'll need it surely. I will need it a lot. On days like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up.
I do like that song. But yeah, I had never heard this song before I was sent it to mix, which is always fun. But yeah, there we go. So what's going to happen at some point, we're roughly halfway through this album now, and when, I don't know how many tracks this album's going to be, but when we get to the end point, we're going to have Paul from Banana Ranch in the studio, and he's going to sit there with me, and we're going to go through, make notes of things that he'd like to hear subtle changes of, and we're going to do all that on the day, then check the mixes, then move to mastering and check it. 12 tracks. Oh, so we're not quite halfway through the album then. Right. Well, this is going to be a project that takes a little while. Cool. But yeah, I mean, this isn't by far the most complex mix, even that Banana Ranch have sent me, because this is only 59 tracks. There are, of course, 4 tracks of, well, if you count the folder, 5 tracks of bass. But that's just me being me, because I've got the original actual bass track, which is producing no sound. Then yeah, so I've got the amp. I've got a track that's got a Sans amp on it as well. It's giving us some character and attitude. Oh, actually, it's a JCM 800 instead of a Sans amp, but same idea. And there's an octave under the last big chorus. Let's just turn this chuggy guitar up a little the second time round. And Marty said the plugin that micro phases, well, it's called Micro Shift, the one that does the slight stereoization effect. The one that does that.
You will prop me up, and then you serenading me with your love.
That's a single vocal doing that, and yeah, that's Soundtoys Micro Shift, which is based on an Eventide H3000 Ultra Harmonizer. And on one side the pitch is very slightly lower, and on one side the pitch is very slightly higher, with a tiny little delay, I think, on both sides. And that's then kind of giving a stereo-y sounding effect, which is, you'll hear it plastered over everything from David Bowie's Fame all the way through to stuff like Steve Vai's guitar stuff and everything in the early 90s and late 80s. Push the twinkle guitars. Yes, I can do that. Let's find out which ones we're looking at. So, like, that one's definitely nice. the volume of the vocals on the end section there just by a decibel, just because with everything going on they were just starting to get lost, so I've just pushed them up a little. The micro shift from Stillwell Audio was disappointing. I actually quite liked it. That would be the Stillwell CMX. I used that for a long time until Soundtoys micro shift came along, because I've always known about harmonizers. I've always been obsessed with Eventide harmonizers. Stillwell stuff's really good for the price, but you get what you pay for in a lot of ways. And Stillwell's a very clever engineer, but the guys from Soundtoys, they are some of the engineers that literally made the Eventide harmonizer. Now, the CMX is based on the AMS DMX 16, which is not actually an Eventide harmonizer. They're slightly different. And the DMX has a much more obvious sound to it. And if that's not your thing, then you're not going to get along with it. God, I'm starting to sound like Warren. But let me just find... because here's an interesting little thing. If I just solo something, what have I got?
Me with your love. Me with your love.
These three different styles, Style 1 and Style 2, are different preset patches from the Eventide harmonizer. Here's one.
Me with your love.
Slightly less stereo and you can hear a bit phasing. 2.
Me with your love.
Bit more phasey. 3, though, is actually off the AMS DMX.
Me with your love.
And in a mixed context, it can sound a bit more robotic and a bit more obviously affected. Sometimes I use that specifically for that reason. But yeah, if you don't like the CMX, it's probably because the original unit was based off was really quite obvious when it did effects, where the Eventide one could be a lot more subtle. Cool. Looks like I've just had another email or Facebook message or something from somebody with a question. So another polite reminder to anybody who views the channel, I don't tend to respond to personal emails or non-business messages because I don't have the time to help people out individually. But if you ask a question in a forum like this or on one of the YouTube videos or in our Discord, there's a very good chance that me answering that question will help a lot of people in one go. So I try and channel my efforts when I'm not editing, filming, mixing, building the studio, doing one of the million other things that I do, to help people out in a way that will help more than one person. So just thought that was a good time for a nice friendly reminder. I do like answering people's questions. I do like helping people out. But if you're trying to email me to get a personal question, I'm not someone's personal tech support. Oh, hello, live from upstate New York, USA. Here is Apple Studios. Hello. Yeah, let's just run the song one more time, see if anything stands out, because you'll quite often when I play a song see me suddenly just get distracted by something I hear and start twiddling knobs. So let's see if that happens this time. If not, I think we're there.
Oh, this time please say that you wish me luck. I'll need it surely. I will.
Yep, already found my first thing. The bass is way ahead. So I'm going to nudge it back by nearly 20 milliseconds. Does it really matter to consider LUFS during mixing before the mastering process? Nope, not at all. Nope. LUFS is something that is for broadcast standards. You don't need to worry about that when you're mixing, as long as you've not got anything horrible going on, like massive amounts of sub-frequencies or, massive amounts of anything that shouldn't be there. You can give a mastering engineer a mix that tops out 20 decibels below, or tops out right near the top, as long as it's not clipping and as long as it's a good mix, all other things being equal, that doesn't make a difference, because all a mastering engineer has to do is adjust that to suit them. I tend to try and generally track things between -18 and -12 dB-ish, so that when they peak, and they often do, especially with drums, I've got loads of headroom, and all the analog style plugins that I use react as I would expect them to, in the right kind of ranges. And then when I'm mixing, I do tend to be a bit more free with that, which is why quite often you'll see things like red lights going. That's me driving virtual plugins to the point where there's probably a good 10 to 20 dB of push on some of them. And they do start to reach the top, but then as they do that, we do tend to see that then gets processed through something like a compressor or something like FG Bomber. There's a trimmer here on the drums that takes another 6 dB off, so I try and keep my levels at each stage below 0 dB FS. And then the FGX that's on here is not really part of the mixing process at all. That's because I do that as kind of a middle stage deliverable, meaning that when you send tracks to an artist, even if it's not the master, if it's just a mix, they like to hear it roughly volume matched with anything else they would hear through their stereo. So by just gently pushing the volume up into that region, not necessarily slamming the hell out of it, you do tend to get more favourable reactions from artists by doing that. And then when it comes time to master, if everybody's happy with the mix, you then take that back off, make sure that all your levels are clean and that there are no spikes that go above 0, then deliver that to the mastering engineer. And then they can do what they need to with that, depending on what platform is going to and whatever else has been specified by the artist. So yeah, I'm quite strict about levels when I'm tracking, a lot looser when I'm mixing, and then I'm quite strict again when I'm mastering, because they're all creative processes, but doing it right in the tracking stage makes mixing easier. Mixing is such a kind of a bleh kind of thing where it messes with everybody's heads, that where I try and just get the best results possible. If something goes over 0, it's not the end of the world. Mastering is the bit where it goes out to the world, and at that point it has to be right. So I try and be different people at different points, and I have different rule sets as different people in that chain. I mean, if I could have, multiple copies of me, they wouldn't all behave the same. That's the funny thing. Probably because I would have, like, tracking engineer Adam would be very fastidious and very particular about levels, mic positions, that kind of thing. Mixing Adam would be a bit more carefree. Mastering Adam sat in his £1 million mastering studio just laughing at everybody. Producer Adam sat at the back in a turtleneck sweater with a pen in his mouth, telling the artist to do it again. Yeah. Who needs schizophrenia when you can just try and be all these people on purpose? Anyway, now that I've pushed the timing of the bass back, let's see if that's fixed that, because I could just really hear that sticking out.
This time please say that you wish me luck. I'll need it surely, I will need it a lot. On days like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle. And when I feel Oh, times are changing and I'm losing track of my thoughts. On days like this, you're all that I have got, and I'm grateful. And when I feel I'm fading, you prop me up, and then you serenading me with your love. And when I feel I'm fading, you prop me up, and then you serenading me with your love. Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not, whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not.
Nice. I did notice in the second half of that big section at the end there, the snare just kind of got swallowed up. So I just hit V for volume on the automation of let's try snare 2, which is the triggered snare, which I use a triggered snare because it's got 0 bleed, and also because the main snare was quite high pitched, and songs like this do tend to want a slightly more what's the word? More deep, authoritative kind of snare.
Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not.
Right, now what I'm going to do is exactly what I did on the previous song, because it's just in that big crashy section. So what I'm going to do is add in a Reaper recomp, picky recomp, and I'm going to set it to be auxiliary input, 0 attack, and copy that over to that drum ambient that's got the big washy crashy cymbals on as well, and just send the snare over to their auxiliary inputs. So sending the audio through to 3 and 4 here on each one, and then just bring the levels down here. Oh yeah, ratio. Ratio 3:1, 4:1, otherwise it's not doing anything. There we go, let's try that in the mix context. And without. Yeah, so they were getting swallowed up. And now they've suddenly got that attack back. Well done, Warren. Thank you very much for that trick. I'll be using that for the rest of my life. Still going to push that snare by a dB, I think. And just half a dB just before it.
Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not.
Mark Bolton in the chat. Thank you very much, sir. It's always encouraging to hear.
Deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether
why that snare was louder there, but minus 2.9 on the rest of the track. Cool. So that was the only thing that I was really noticing that stood out for me negatively now on the song, was that the snare was getting swallowed, and hopefully between that little bit of extra cleanup compression,
You serenading me with your love. Whether I deserve or need it a lot. On days like this, the pressure feels.
cool. I think I am just going to add in a little bit of the David Bendeth snare here. Hopefully not kill it. Just going to take those down by several dB because it's just an extra something. Because even though that sounds, with that ring sounds like too much, but over the years I've come to learn that a big ring on a snare actually works usually quite well in a mix, as long as it's not particularly resonant. Wang, wang. That the ring on the snare tends to kind of blend into the reverb and just give it a bit more character. So here's it without. And then with. Cool, let's see that in context.
On days like this, the pressure feels so hard to handle. And when I feel I'm failing, you prop me up. And then you serenading me with your love. Whether I deserve it or not, you're there for me. Whether I deserve it or not.
Yeah, it does just have a certain bang to it, which is very nice. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to have a bit of fun. So somebody was asking in chat about before and after. I'm just going to turn off all the effects and see what happens. So technically that's before. I mean, the mix balance is going to be off, but yeah, before. And after.
Whether I deserve it or not. Whether I deserve it or not. Whether I deserve it or not.
Yeah, that's something you can do in Reaper, by the way. You can just turn on and off an entire track's worth of effects, and if you select all your tracks, you can do it on them all. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, everybody. But yes, it's always gratifying to end up with a song like a lot of the. It's weird. A lot of the songs that I work on, I end up listening to over and over. I end up with them on in the car because they're the kind of music that I want to listen to, because, you know, it's really good stuff. Greetings to Argentina. Oh, Elbows Grounds for Divorce. That's a great drum sound. That's probably a 14 by 8. either steel or brass snare as a guess, and the whole kit is compressed to death, and it's compressed to death either with a gate stay level or a level lock from Shure, or something vintage where it was just absolutely disgusting compression if you turned it up way too far. I love sounds like that. I mean, I'm using a sound like that right now in the drum group called the Monster, and without it the drums sound like this. Very polite. And then with, difference is I'm using about 16.9% in the mix, whereas on something like Grounds for Divorce by Elbow, that's up to 100, and where I've got some air EQ here, that would not be on. So just for experiment's sake, if I turn off the air and crank the mix here, this is more like Grounds for Divorce. But you would change the drum beat, obviously, and that kind of. Or if I turn them both off, that's how the drums sound without that compression. But if I add in, I have Soundtoys Devil Lock, which is their software version of a level lock. And let's just start this off with a 0 mix, a little bit of darkness, some crush and crunch, and just slowly add this in. Listen to the difference this does on the drums. So yeah, how about that? Master bus. I have one thing on my master bus. Well, obviously I've got Slate FGX. That is just pushing the volume right now by 2 whole decibels, and that's it. I have True Iron. Kazrog's True Iron is the equivalent of running my whole mix through a couple of big ass transformers, and it's compensating by taking the output back down by dB to match. Let's turn that on and off on the whole mix. Oh, wait. I never turned the mix on the Monster back down to its previous slightly more sane level. So this is without. Not bad. And with. It's so hard to put your finger on with True Iron. It's a very subtle plugin. It's just got a certain richness, which is why I like it. It's not trying too hard to be something it's not. It's very much what a rock and roller would use, and that's kind of, I love it. I've just set up in the studio this week, and one of the reasons I'm rather tired, I've got a new set of inputs for the studio. I've got 8 channels on that Audient ASP 880, which is super clean, running through old BBC line preamps with massive transformers input and output on it, and they sound so good. But without the BBC preamps, you don't hear much of a difference until you stack them all on, record through them a lot, and then play the mix back, and you go, oh, whoa, this mix jumps out the speakers at me. The previous one didn't. It's, art of subtlety over and over and over, I'm finding. And, it's one of those things. That's the only thing on the master bus. Let's turn off the master bus processing entirely. And then on. So it is a little louder, but yeah, I mean, mixes like this are just bringing together everything that I've learned over a long time, like making some of those guitars pop out by using a nice delay and then going, well, what delay should I use? Probably an Echoplex or that kind of thing. It's all just, play with every piece of gear you can, play with every piece of software you can. Yeah, it's all glue. Yes, thank you. And my technique's constantly changing and evolving, and so it should. That there is nobody in this land who knows everything, and some of the great mix engineers will sometimes read something or hear something and go, oh, I'm going to do that, and add that to their workflow. And it happens every day. And so that works for me. My long-term aim is to, have people know who I am and like what I do and come and work with me because they like what I do. That doesn't necessarily mean that I have to consider myself to be one of the best in the world or anything daft like that, because that's not for me to say. That's, some people don't like what I do, and that's fine. And as things go, life's all right now. But yeah, right now I've just essentially gone full time as a YouTube personality, which is the strangest feeling in the world. But I am still doing mixes, as you can see. Hoping to have Aurora project in the studio in what's looking like it's going to be a few weeks now because of the whole, situation. And that big project that I can't talk about is currently taking up half the space in the studio. I'm climbing over stuff. And the studio's not small. And yeah, there's a potential event happening in several weeks. But I'm not allowed to talk about that yet either, just in case it doesn't happen. We don't want to hype people up. But yeah, has anyone got any more questions in the chat? Because this looks like it's ready to go. Also, let's just see if this mixes out without offending your ears. I didn't want that. I wanted to export the time selection. Duh. Yeah, alright. There we go. And I will have to go back and... hello? Oh, there we go. There's some latency on it, probably because the render's causing the whole computer to have a bit of a fit. Let's have an ASMR channel. So when are you going to try out your new live setup with the band? Well, that's going to be a while, but that's hopefully not too far in the future. When you say full-time YouTube personality, does that mean everything you do in your brick and mortar studio will be partially on YouTube from now? That's kind of the hope. There will be the odd project now that people come to the studio that they specifically want to be done off air. But when they do, part of it is going to be that the rate card will reflect that. And I think we're actually going to charge more for clients that don't want to be filmed than for those that do. Because the incentive for them, if they are filmed, is that they get more exposure, which is an artist you definitely generally want. And yeah, the focus going forward is going to be more video content, more that kind of... We're shifting the focus because it's working well. We've definitely noticed... Oh, thank you, Blue Velvet. Yes. We've definitely noticed that as we grow as a channel, as opposed to a studio, we've got to the point where, well, it was always the case where with a studio, you have one client in at once, if you have it booked at all, because, up and down situations like this arise, and even when they don't, bands are flaky and that kind of thing. you can't grow from there. It's essentially a dead end thing. You can charge what you can charge, and beyond that, you're going to do that until the day you die. With teaching and YouTube, there are many, many possibilities to expand and grow. Like with the Ultimate Reaper course, which many of you will be aware of. And that's the kind of thing where between that and things like virtual cabinets and, revenue from videos where we're teaching people around the world how to do things, means that if I want a week off from the studio, I don't then have to panic about how the bills are being paid. Not that I ever have a week off. I'm a workaholic, but that's not the point. The point is, that's the thing that we want to do. How do you bill your clients? Do you use some kind of invoice, or how do you handle any admin type stuff? Well, with studio clients, always agree things up front. And find out very quickly, are they a person or are they a business? Generally, I find that the bands that I want to work with at a lower level are people. And at a bigger level, they are businesses. As people, get at least a 50% deposit, because otherwise you have no way, if they just decide to disappear, they could just disappear at any point. They say, I don't like you, weren't going, whatever. I mean, I also do ask for a deposit up front on most jobs anyway, unless it's just like, well, actually, most jobs, yeah. But yeah, we can do a number of things. But if it depends on the client. If it's big, then we use Xero, XERO, which is the business system that we use with our accountants, because that helps keep track of everything. At the end of the tax year, I don't have to panic. I just go, oh, okay, here's everything that you're already linked to, Mr. Accountant. What do we owe the tax man? And they can go, beep, boop, boop, boop. There you go. And that also can do invoicing and all that kind of stuff, and you can keep track of everything. So I do recommend that. We generally don't these days do cash, because I don't want those kind of clients generally. I mean, if it's somebody that I know and they want to come in for a 2-hour or 4-hour session, then sure, I'll do that for them. But generally speaking, I tend to find that the people who are more invested in their work, at the very least, they have a bank account. And we can do things like, we've got one of those card readery things. If someone wants to pay by card in the studio, they can just swipe it and do that. But yeah, we never, for a studio project, we never give the final deliverable until the bill's paid. That's another thing. But yeah, there's always paperwork. There's always a trace, because we've been a limited company for several years at this point, and it's got to be done right, because otherwise the tax man will bite you, and you don't want that. When you're doing things with companies, though, that can be slightly different, that you can send invoices to be paid within 30 days. Some of the companies that I've worked with in the past, where I've done videos specifically for them, then you can send them an invoice to be paid within 30 days. And generally speaking, they're quite good about that. Businesses, they won't pay for as long as possible on the 30 days. You'll probably get it on the 29th or 30th day, but then it's all sorted. But with them being a bigger company, it's like they've got a reputation to uphold. If they don't pay you, you go on, social media or whatever and say, well, these guys don't pay their bills. I don't think I would personally do that, but I have the option with the business that you can bring their reputation into disrepute. So it's very much in their best interests to pay their bills. And I've never had any problems with that with businesses so far. But with, like I say, with people can be flaky. It's another reason that I'm focusing on the live YouTube side of things going forward, because, you know, it's something that can grow. And if I have people in the studio, I either want it to be because it's people I really want to work with, or it's something where we can do video content with them, which is great for them and great for me, obviously. And that way, you know, I want to see bands in my studio where we do like full 8-hour live streams of the entire studio day, because that will give you guys a massive insight into what goes on. That means you'll get to see some really great musicians tracking, making mistakes, but then also you'll see how we get round those mistakes and how we get to the end, which is also great for them, because then they've got loads of footage that they can make, you know, making of videos, and that they can do all the social media stuff of come and hang out live with us in the studio, blah, 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 blah. And that keeps them busy, and also means that I'm then still working with clients, but then for a significant period of time after that, I can then do mixing on stream, referring back to material that was tracked, that you can actually see the footage of. And, you know, how could that possibly be a bad thing? And then the videos that I make going forward, we obviously get things like ad revenue, but then that helps the channel to grow. That helps our stature in the industry grow, which means that more companies want to work with us because they want us to have their amps or their guitars around these bands. Then we get bigger bands want to come in and do the same thing. That's the plan. If we were just to stay as a studio, like I say, that's a fairly dead-end thing, because we're not Abbey Road. We don't have this 60, 70 plus year huge reputation that will carry us into the future, and smaller studios are all dying because they don't diversify. So yeah, I mean, you know, like Marty says, it's all perception, and I think a lot of it will start to change over the next several years, because the idea right now of a band coming into a studio and everything being broadcast to the world as they do it is probably a little bit weird. But as you get younger and younger bands that become slightly older, they've been brought up in an entirely social media age. Imagine a band full of 18-year-olds a couple of years from now who've been brought up in the, you know, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, whatever revolution. All their friends are all on these social media platforms. So imagine for these guys having their entire studio journey broadcast live to the world. They're not going to be like, oh, I don't want to be on camera. They're going to be, I want to be on camera all the time. And as we get a few bands in and do that and actually have examples on the channel as well, that's going to be quite important. Then we'll be able to see that and then go, look, this is the idea and this is the final result. And so it doesn't really matter how you got there, but it's interesting to see as a journey. And if that takes off, I might even be able to take the time to make like highlight videos, because it's all going to be like multi-camera, but it's going to be like saving a single camera. I'm not going to save the multi-camera because that would be insane. But yeah, there's so many, music streamers, that kind of thing. But a lot, I mean it's a lot of music streamers are not technical at all. They have been told by their friends or the internet or their parents or whatever what microphone to get. They're probably using a setup like I have now, which is like, 2 cheap LED lights and a phone, but without the audio quality. And their talent is great, but if they can get, what I do combined with what they do, you're really, really going for it then. Plus, depending on the setup that I have, if I've still got a camera or two, a really nice camera or two that are not in the live stream setup, I could actually do like music performance style videos for somebody whilst live streaming the entire process. It starts to get a bit Inception, but the ideas are all there. Yeah. So that's it. For every band that isn't interested in that, there'll be another band that is. And I've decided, this is the thing with deciding to do kind of like full-time YouTube as the focus. I'm stopping basically appealing to everybody and becoming more, this is what we do, come to us if that's what you want. Because being specific, I think, is definitely going to help us going forward. And then we don't necessarily have to try and fit the mold of every particular situation. Although there is still some flexibility involved because different types of bands require different things. And, Oh, question. How's the Discord community different from here at YouTube or Facebook? Well, I'm not on Facebook very much. We have a page there where I try and post things whenever I can, but honestly, we should grow that, and I hope to grow that. But right now, it's kind of a carbon copy of the Instagram where I post nice pictures. The YouTube community that we have is great, and especially when we are live, there are quite a few of the people on the Discord server here in the live chat, and it's always good to have this live back and forth conversation. The Discord, however, is available 24/7, and there are different channels that you can talk in so that it's not necessarily crossfire if there's more than one conversation going. Like there's a channel particularly for PCs and building a computer to do with audio. There's one to do with gaming. There's the general chat as well for this kind of general chat. There is a channel where I need to update it where we're actually going to be posting the latest video. Let me have a look on the Discord at channels. We've got one specifically for chat about Reaper. Me and Scott from Chernobyl Studios are planning on doing a weekly Friday live video with ideas brought up by people in the Discord. So there is a specific channel for that. And so, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. There is a Discord. Marty, would you be so kind as to put the link in the chat, please? If he's still there and not just eating cheese. Yeah, so we have our own Discord, and we are trying to grow a small community there as well. So yeah, if there's any sort of technical, thanks Marty. If there's any technical questions you've got that can turn into a discussion, the Discord's also a good place to look. Yeah, feel free to have a look through for like tips and tricks, but also, it's much more conversational there. It's like this part of this video, because a lot of the videos that we do talk to the chat, but we also generally have an agenda for that video to get through. So we don't necessarily talk to the chat as much as we'd like. Sometimes we do, like now. But with the Discord, that's what it's for. So even when I'm not there on the Discord as well, it's very much, we're starting to get a little community where people are starting to talk amongst themselves and all become friends and get conversations going that don't necessarily include me. Because I am busy a lot of the time, but then whenever I get a spare minute, it's good for me to check in, find out what's going on, join in. And yeah, it's good to have a little community where some of the burden, honestly, is taken off me as well. So yeah, I appreciate everybody who's been involved in the chat. Thank you, Al. But yeah, in the nicest possible way, it's really nice to have people talking as a group and not just all wanting to ask me questions one-on-one all at the same time, if you know what I mean. It's... Oh, no, feel free to spam the Discord channels as much as you like. Just try if you can to keep them in the relevant channel, that's all. We'll probably make a few more channels as time goes on as well, because some channels, like we did one, I think we called it live stream text. I don't know what that was all about. That's probably just going to go. But by trying to categorize the chat a little bit, if there is a specific topic that comes up time and time again, rather than it being lost in the general stream, we'll make a specific channel for it. Been taking part in a YouTube live for the past 113 days. Oh, blimey. My schedule is a little bit erratic at the moment, just because I've been so busy and because I have a 2-year-old daughter, and that can confuse things. But generally, every Thursday, 8 p.m. UK time, we have our podcast, which is me and my co-host Liam, or special guest, where we talk about the music tech week in review, news, and ask questions, and if we have a special guest, we dive in with the special guest. Fridays are going to be same time, 8 p.m. Special guest Scott from Chernobyl Studios. We're going to be having a nice backwards and forwards dialogue about chat topics specifically chosen in the Discord. And then I'll be doing mixes. It's either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, 8 p.m. The hope is, I think, to make it Tuesdays. But as you can see, I'm here on a Wednesday because we've been kind of hopping and skipping them around. I wanted to do one last night, but I was underneath the desk in the studio fighting with the dust bunnies, trying to rewire the new studio computers. Multiple. Evening, Nick. Hello. Yeah. Nipper Lewis. Oh, started learning Reaper. Awesome. Will I be working with any jazz bands? I'm not going to say no, but I wouldn't count on it. My general specialty is kind of pop, rock, metal, so generally bands with guitars with some distortion in generally seems to be the thing that I do. I'm doing well. I'm starting to get rather dry mouth because I've been talking pretty much non-stop for the last 2.5 hours, like you do. Could do with another beer, but if I do that, I'll have to put the stream on break, and it's a bit late to be putting the stream on break. Let's just, while I'm thinking on, have a new project tab and open up Searchlight, because I never actually rendered that out. Oh, hi. Yes, I am well. So yes, I have lots and lots to do over the next few days. Tomorrow during the day, I'm with Ivy, my daughter, which is going to be great. And then I've got the podcast tomorrow night. And a new painting. Oh, it's an empty canvas. That's just kind of the... that's what they print on the kind of default. So right now, probably shouldn't be leaning my base against it. I don't want to put a dent in Mickey's canvas. She'll kill me. Yeah, it's just that's just a blank canvas to be used as and when. Yeah, she just popped her head and said, "My canvas." But yeah, why not? I'm going to just grab a beer. Well, mostly the bass was leaning against the stack, but never mind. Everything's fine. I'm going to close. Oh no, I'm not going to close weather. We'll play the 2 songs. So I'm just going to go and grab a beer. Everybody else, go and grab yourselves a drink of some kind, and I'll see you back here in 60 seconds. I am back. Let me... Nah, canvas is fine. It's fine. There we go. Yes, I'm back, and I have non-alcoholic beer. Non-alcoholic drink, even. The one beer I've had is sending me loopy. It's better. So... Yes, welcome back. Thank you. So this is the song we were playing at the start of the stream that I'd done slight tweaks to. This is Searchlight, so this is much more rock, with a definite kind of Biffy Clyro vibe, which is why, if you've tuned in and you didn't see the other stream, I played the bass on this track and added in some extra grit and even an octave under the big sections. But yeah, I've tweaked it a little bit to make the snare pop a little more. Used the David Bendeth Paramore Misery Business snare in there. And yeah. I mean, oh, thank you, Marion, but you don't have to leave Cubase. I came from Cubase to Reaper, but that was Cubase SX3 when I moved. So yeah, Cubase 3. I moved over from Cubase 3 to Reaper 3 and ended up staying on Reaper. But whatever works for you, man. So let's listen to this. This is Searchlight, but this is the mix as it stands. I never say final because there will be revisions when Paul comes down to the studio and we make notes.
You build me up with the slightest word, you knock me down with ease. I'm teetering, I'm on the edge, I'm falling to my knees. All alone in the darkest desert, the mountains block my view. Waiting patiently for your searchlight. What else can I do? It's a shame that you leave me hanging on for dear life, darling. A shame that I can't be found within your searchlight beam. It's a shame that you leave me hanging on for dear life, darling. A shame that I can't be found within your searchlight beam. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Without you, there is no me. Without you, there is no me. All at sea on the darkest of nights, the storm is closing in. Desperately I want your searchlight because I cannot swim. All around me waters rising, strong winds start to blow. Can you reach me before it's too late? And I think that you know it's a shame that you leave me hanging on for dear life, darling. A shame that I can't be found within your searchlight beam. It's a shame that you leave me hanging on for dear life, darling. A shame that I can't be found within your searchlight beam. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Without you, there is no me. Without you, there is no me. Without you, there is no me. Without you, there is no me.
Cool, that does need a tiny bit of work. Just noticed the last without you. That bit was just too loud now when all the instruments drop out, so just drop a dB and a half off it.
Without you, there is no me. Without you, there is no me.
Yeah, and those are just a bit much.
Nothing can keep me from falling apart. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead.
They're different. It's not copy pasted. They're different takes, and they cut right through. So they're going to need to come down by a couple of dB.
Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Without you, there is no me. Without you, there is no me.
Okay, I'm adjusting the wrong thing because I'm an absolute idiot. There we go. Never mix when tired, people. Our group didn't have a volume automation on it at all. So what it needed was me to hit the V key first. Play.
Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Nothing can keep me from falling apart. I'm dead to the world if I'm dead to your heart. Without you, there is no me. Without you, there is no me.
There is no me. Okay, so those there is no me's. It's a really nice punch, but just a little loud. There we go. If ever you think that this is more particular than any of the old mixing engineers would have done as well, guess again. A classic mix engineers, what they would do is instead of using a mouse and a click here, they would fly the mixes with their fingers and then listen back, and if it wasn't right, they'd just have to fly it again and just try and be a bit less of a push with it. Or if you were using like an SSL Ultimation on a 4000 series desk, yeah, you'd record it all in with your fingers, and then if the push wasn't right, you'd still go back and re-record that. With the bands you work with, how much of the songs are tracked live and how much is layered depends entirely on the band. Some bands want to do almost entirely live, some bands want to be almost entirely layered. Very much depends on the band. This, I would imagine, was all layered, but this was sent to me remotely, which, you know, is no surprise in the circumstances we're in right now, but also these guys used to come and track with me, and it would, in the early days, be largely drums and one guitar at the same time. Sometimes with bass tracked at the same time as well, but usually layered on afterwards. Then we would overlay and overlay and overlay. Because these guys were a 3-piece and technically now a 2-piece, I believe, but also with lots of guest players. And so for them that works, and also one of them now lives in Northern Ireland, which is a long way away from me in terms of just nipping into the studio. So they always work remotely at this point. But yeah, I've worked with bands where we've done the entire thing live, and I've worked with bands where they'll do everything from just start with a guitar, just start with drums and one vocal. Do I have a preference? No, because it very much depends on the style of music for me. If you're doing like super tight prog or something like that, you need to layer it. You need it to be separate. If you're doing something where it's all aggressive, something like heavy grunge or punk, it pretty much has to all be done live, because the bleed and the tempo pulls and all that kind of stuff are very much part of that thing. And like you were asking about jazz before, if it was something like a jazz trio or something like that, jazz quartet, that would more than likely be entirely live, because it's hard to replicate that feel. Although when I say entirely live, things like, you know, vocal harmony overdubs, that kind of thing would probably be done later. But in that case, where the track revolves around the musicians having a musical bond and a soul that can only come from that performance, then that performance is the way it has to be. But if it's something that's a bit more technical and needs to be clinically polished, then that's the way that it would be preferred to do. My preference generally is for a band to be able to record something in a practice room, even if it's off a phone, and send that to me, because very quickly I can get a feel and then say to them, right, you need to record this way, or sometimes give them a choice of 2 options, and it all depends on the band. We have also done things like kind of minus mixes where we've recorded the entire band together, then overdubbed the instruments one by one, and then right at the very end just removed the last, replaced the last instrument so that it's all then clean and separate, but the feel of the original take is still there. That's doable, but it depends on several things. Firstly, how good are the musicians? If they're excellent, then they get to choose. if they are excellent musicians and they get to choose whether they want the feel of live performance or whether they want the accuracy of layering up. And if they're not excellent musicians, then it starts to get a bit more of a muddy water, where it's right, what's more important to you, getting a radio hit or sticking to some sort of punk principle? Because if the answer is, well, we're our ethos is DIY lo-fi, we want you to make us sound good, but us making a racket in a room is what it's all about, then track them all live. If it's, okay, well, maybe we're not the best, but we want this to sound as if we were the best versions of ourselves, then you go for layering. And yeah, the other thing is you get to questions like, has the drummer worked with a click track before? And a lot of the time they will say, oh yeah, I've worked with a click track. And then you say, well, when have you worked with a click track? They're like, oh, I listened to a click track in my headphones once. It's like, no, that's not experience working with a click track. That's not, whereas I get some drummers where they say, well, I practice regularly with a click on it in ears. It's not a problem for me. And that comes back to, so I'm going to get this rendering. That comes back to an argument that a lot of drummers try and have with me, which is, oh, playing to a click removes all the feel. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. If you can't play to a click, you can't play to a click. It's nothing to do with feel. Some of my favourite drummers in the world can play absolutely perfectly to a metronome and yet have so much feel in their playing. Guys like the late Neil Peart from Rush. He could play absolutely perfectly to a click and still you instantly knew it was him. It didn't sound like a robot. Oh yeah, rendering's slowing everything down yet, so yeah, don't worry about that. As long as you can hear me fine. It'll be done in 48 seconds. Yeah, that is funny though. Yeah, as long as you guys can hear me, I can see that. So, yeah. Oh, that's weird video artifacting. It'll probably come back to normal very soon. But yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with laying stuff on top of a live performance either. I mean, how do you see your composition is the question. Like, a lot of bands come into my studio and they've got a basic skeleton structure for a song. There we go. And now it skips through everything. There we go. And we're back. Yeah, they've got a skeleton structure for a song, which means they've got like a verse, chorus, everything in place. They'll have the lead vocal in place. And then in their minds, they've got this half-finished, nebulous version of what they want the finished article to be. And often those are the best kind of bands to work with for me, because they then have to make themselves open to ideas because they don't know really what they want. So then they start playing in the live room. We start to set them up and they play. And that's why I ask for a demo most of the time, even if it doesn't have to be well recorded, because very quickly I can tend to get a feel for where a band wants to go. Like, quite often in Manchester particularly, bands try and say, oh, I don't like Oasis. Then they come into the studio and they sound very much like Oasis. Because they don't realise it, but they are a product of their surroundings. Yeah. Improvisers like the band to flow with a solo in the moment. Every take is different. Yeah. Generally, again, I mean, not with jazz, but with rock stuff, generally, we don't let musicians solo in the live performance section. Because of all the bleed and all that kind of stuff, if they fluff a note, that ruins the entire take. So generally in rock, what we do is we have the guitarist who is going to take a solo either drop out or just continue playing the basic rhythm as a placeholder to either be replaced or for them to then drop the solo on top and then pan that rhythm part kind of lower and off to a side just to fill out some sonic space while the focus is that solo. Because people genuinely don't care live if you had 10 backing rhythm guitar tracks. But on record, they kind of do because they just kind of want to sound thick and full and they don't know why and they don't care. How about the singer that doesn't know how to breathe in before singing in the booth? You become a vocal coach for recording. Yes, that's a skill you very much have to pick up. You have to become a vocal couch. Yes. That's one area of the whole thing where my skill set definitely lands on its feet because I've been obsessed for years with being the best singer I can be, being the best guitarist, not necessarily by 6 hours of practice a day because I'm spending 6 hours a day doing this stuff, but knowing every tip and trick in the book of, that kind of thing. And knowing all the drum production tricks of not just how to record a good drum take, but all the people tricks, like getting a drummer to slow down on a take or getting a drummer to accent different things by becoming friends with the drummer or the singer, kind of is my vocal booth wall-to-wall padding? My vocal booth has wall-to-wall padding in it, but it also has kind of perforated metal mesh over most of it to provide a kind of a double isolating wall. But yeah, the vocal booth is dry. That YouTube studio tour, the 2021, I think, is very much a snapshot in time. Things are changing already. There are more cabinets in there now. It's getting silly. And also, there's now a whole live streaming setup in there that wasn't there previously. The 2021 studio tour is going to be bananas, I can tell you that. I've now got an entire massive, 10 by 5 IKEA wall full of boxes full of microphones and cables and things, and it's getting a little crazy. But yeah, learn every trick you can if you want to be a studio producer, not just for how to click the buttons, but how to be a great singer. Whether you sing or not, learn how to be a great singer, learn how to be a great drummer, learn how to be a great guitarist. Even if you can't put the time in to actually embody that, every tip and trick you can find will come in handy in a situation. Like when I get singers coming into the studio and it's the start of a 10-hour day and they come in and they've got some of that fruit water that's got saccharin and pretend fruit flavors in and that kind of thing. I just look them in the face and say, that is either going to somebody else or going in the trash. You need to get proper water, maybe some tea with no milk. And they go, oh, why? I like this stuff. And that's because blah 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 blah. That's because that stuff dries out your throat. And then I start with these kind of discussions where if you were just, if it was a normal day and you weren't a singer, it's not a problem. But on that particular day, that's going to cause problems. And I start using loads of analogies where, that's a great example where, if you were going to walk somewhere all day, That's like talking to somebody for several hours. You can do it. It's not a problem. Soon as you start singing really expressively, that's the equivalent of marathon running. And suddenly, it's a whole different set of muscles, set of demands. If you do a big singing show, you are sweating by the end of it because of the amount of physical exertion. How do you bring your A game for that entire thing? And to do that, you then have to start optimizing things like being properly hydrated from the get-go, eating the right food during the recording session, and so on and so on and so on and so on. I know that was a big tangent, but that's all to say that each one of these particular disciplines, guitar, drums, bass, even keyboards, whatever it may be, if you're going into an 8-hour recording session, then you need to be not only in a frame of mind but a frame of body where you're at peak efficiency. And I, as a studio engineer, have observed all this over many years, and I've seen what the wrong diet and the wrong attitude can do to people, whereas the right attitude can provide great results. And then you get into all these little things. Like, I've spent a lot of time learning vocal harmony. If you gave me a song with a lead melody line over it and said, I'd like to do harmonies over this, but I don't know how to harmonize, how do you do that on the spot? Well, you start thinking, okay, well, do you want block harmony? Do you want passing notes? Do you want an upper third? Do you want two? Do you want them lower? Do you want octaves? Do you want a spread? Do you want them to be in a round, or do you want the timing to be the same? Right, okay, well, now you've decided you want this type. You've decided you want this to match. Okay, well, to keep this in key, this one moves, but this one doesn't at this particular point, because otherwise they don't resolve. If you move them in parallels, it sounds like Gregorian chanting. And then you go, okay, well, if that's your line, then you want this one up. This is the line you want. And with a lot of singers, you have to be able to just sing that to them over the talkback mic. No hesitation, no shame, confidence, and go, right, this is your line. Sing this back to me. You don't have to be the best singer in the world, but if you can sing in key and you can come up with the harmonies that work, that's a studio tool. I'm not singing their lines, but I'm singing the line they want to them, because the way that the human ear works, generally you can learn rather well by... if I was to sing you something, you would very easily be able to sing it back to me. I get singers to do that a lot, and then I get them to sing the line, maybe double it, then sing the next harmony, play it back for them, then go, is this what you had in mind? And generally they go, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. Or at least close enough, and then we can tweak it, play with it. That's the kind of skill that a studio engineer should have. Your bass player functions best on beer. Hilarious as that is, that's probably not true. Do I still use that tube mic and preamp in the vocal booth? If you mean the SE Electronics Gemini 2, no, I sold that about 6 months ago because I got the Slate ML1 and it's just defeated everything else. It's just absolutely put everything else to shame. I do have a Jay-Z Microphones Black Hole mic in the studio, which I want to test at some point. But again, I'm so busy at the moment, it's just getting silly. But that's there to test, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And yeah, so that's gone in favour of Mr. Slate's stuff. I met Stephen Slate at NAMM. He didn't look how I thought he looked. It was weird. It was like someone had put on a Stephen Slate suit and hadn't quite fit it properly at the back. It was weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just camera angles or what. It was definitely him. But what does my shirt say? My shirt is a Father Ted reference. It says, small, far away. It's if you've not seen the sitcom Father Ted, it will probably mean nothing to you, but it's just one of the most simple yet funny gags. Yeah. Small, far away. Yeah. Careful now. Down with this sort of thing. Careful now. Anyway, the time is getting on for 3 hours into the stream, so I think unless there's any other very good questions for me to have a quick ramble on, then I think it's time to say good evening and send these songs over to their recipients and then wait for further instructions. Yes, hopefully I'll get to editing more videos over the next few days. Hopefully. Because, yeah, time? What is that? But yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, if I'm stuck in the car for several hours while we drive down to see my other half's family, I'll be able to get the laptop out and some headphones and actually do some editing on the drive. So I'll actually get more work done by not being at the studio. God save the Queen. Everybody stand for the national anthem. Good night, everybody. And yes, I will see you all very shortly. Good night, everyone. See you later. Hey, everyone. That might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server. Link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Hot Pole Studios. See you there.